Hey, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Pretty good. I'm glad to do this. I've been wanting to talk to you for a while now.
I feel honoured.
So good. I'm a fan of your music, so yeah, how's everything going with you? What have you been working on lately?
I've been back to the busking, so I've managed to
Hmm.
finally get back out and sing. And that's where like a lot of my, I think, energy and all the creative stuff comes from what I feed off from outside, like other people. So
Hmm.
lockdown kind of stunted me musically a little bit, I think.
Yeah, how is it now with busking? Are there still lots of people around? And where are you? Are you in London?
No, I'm Birmingham, so it's still a big
Okay.
city, still a big city.
Hmm.
And it's like really grateful, I think, just to have music again. Like so many people
Yeah,
coming in saying thank you so much, you're brightening up the street. So
nice. Yeah. And how's the feeling or the vibe right now after the Maya Forstater case? Just
I,
in general, on Turf Island.
I just lead in the way. Like it just so many women have come forward and said this is what I look like, and I'm not won't mention any names, but I'm meeting up with someone that I've followed for a while on Twitter tomorrow, and we're gonna have lunch, and it's like my first meeting with. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, in
I've
person.
been following for a little while, so I'm looking forward to that.
Awesome. Yeah. How long have you been in this whole like turf world, turf war situation?
So I remember the exact date. It was the 12th of February last year.
Okay.
Yeah, I came up to my year anniversary. When I kind of I'd been I did my research before I kind of put myself out there as with my opinions, but I did a few people might remember it, a big sort of thread on just the where it didn't make sense to me with race and
Mm.
sex. Like that was a huge thing for me because I'm like being mixed race, not belonging to either. Well, I've never felt sort of growing up that I belonged to either black or to white. And I would love to be able to identify into something, but it doesn't change who I am. It doesn't change the way the world will see me. It doesn't, and it kind of something clicked in my head about race and sex, and that's when I first kind of put myself out there on Twitter and said, and the first line was, "I'm probably going to lose a few friends and followers with the following thread," but in actual fact, I delved into a whole world of amazing women and people and thoughts and just diverse personalities that
Mm.
so it's been about a year and a half now, and I, in ways it's changed my life. Like I've become much more in tune with my womanhood.
Mm.
If there's such a thing as, do you know what I mean, what womanhood is or what it means to what it really means to be a woman, rather than I think I was one of those that spent a lot of time avoiding being a woman, and I'm not like other girls, and do you know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, I always had a lot of male friends, and do you know what I mean? And I
Mm.
think the delving into turfery and all of that has kind of I've met so many wonderful, wonderful people and learned things about myself that or admitted things about myself that I was never comfortable admitting. So
Like what? I'm curious.
like motherhood, that was something for
Mm.
me that was icky. Like just ew, I'm not. You know what I mean? Like I'm not
Yeah.
a cow. I'm not. I like. Do you know the idea? I'm sounds so like saying it now. I would have happily said that comfortably. Like I'm not. Do you know what I mean? I'm not here to be bred. I'm not like. Do you know what I mean? Like, and then
Yeah.
just over the last year, I have learned the beauty of motherhood and just woman, like the special thing that we have within us that is the camaraderie between women and I have the motherhood. I think is the main thing that I'm not scared of that anymore. Like I'm not at all. Like
Mm.
I'm for me, motherhood is something that I'm looking forward to now, and this strength in that, the strength of growing another human being. That's not a weakness. And honestly, the whole anything to do with motherhood for me was weak and vulnerable, and now it's the complete opposite.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that lately, how because we spend so much time as turfs talking about how men have the physical advantage, like in sports and in other situations that make us vulnerable to them. But we have the advantage of creating life. I
And
mean, that is like this magical goddess power.
I think that's where a lot of like I thought about it. I thought if I was a man, I'd be jealous. And now
Yeah.
see come to this realization, and then you go and look, and you're like, okay, people have been saying this for years. But men are, I think, envious, very much so, that we are in control. Realistically, when it comes down to it, we everything that is here is because of us. Like everything. Like
Yeah.
and
And
once you
the trans identified males are envious of that. blatantly, you know.
That was where I started to become offended by the idea that a man can, why I don't get to run around identifying as what I want to. And that's with something like race that's just so deeply ingrained in me. And, you know, if I was to go into my background, my whole identity was a mess, but I had to struggle through that. Yet someone can decide that they're like, someone can decide they're a woman without the backlash that comes with it. For me, it's a weird one. So I was brought up by my dad, who's a mixed race, but he's quite dark skinned. He's got dreadlocks, and he was adopted. So he was adopted into a huge white family. And I think he had his own identity issues to do with race. He was in Scotland. There was no other black people around. So he moved to Birmingham, and he had me and my sister. He gave us, like, my name's Nehanda, which is an African name. So he gave me a black name. We were only ever allowed to identify ourselves as black, like anything else. And he was quite aggressive, violent, drunk. If he ever heard me call myself mixed race or anything, I would have been in trouble. And it was just me, my sister, and my dad growing up. We only had black dolls. And when I say black, then they weren't my complexion. Do you know what I mean? Like, so we were taught to idolize black. Like, that was, and I still do. Like, to me, it's taken me years to kind of, like, when I'm more tanned, I feel more comfortable. And like, so when it's summer, or when someone notices that I'm black, I feel validated. And do you know what it is? It's validation. And I only learned through their, you know, gender validation or whatever, that's what that was. So when a black person recognizes me as black or mixed, I got a sense of like they know me. Do you know what I mean? Like that.
Yeah.
But I went through life. I would live in very black areas, and for me, it's embarrassing. It would be embarrassing to call myself a black woman because I'm not. I'm not a black woman. I don't go through the hardship. Maybe some, like I've had some racial. Do you know what I mean? People have been racist to me in the past, but nowhere near, I imagine, as someone who's got much darker skin than I have, and do you know what I mean, much coarser hair, and all of the things that I kind of idolize. So I would love to identify as black. I would love to walk around and call myself a black woman, but I don't, because I look at my dad and I've seen the trouble he has had for being black. Do you get what I mean? So even though I'm part black, and all of my stepmom, she's Trinidadian, she's black. My dad's black. I called her mum growing up. That's my dad. The children they had are obviously my brothers and sisters are all black. But I know that I don't get to do that. But the idea that someone can feel like I feel black. Did you understand what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
There's no such thing, but I do. Like, my parents were black, my friends were black. Like, I feel black. So someone can feel like a woman, and then society will accept them as a woman. But honestly, if I was to call myself a black woman on Twitter, I would get gunned down, and understandably so. Like, I would get shot down because you're not a black woman. Like, you pass as white. I pass as white. So I wouldn't be disrespectful enough to. Yeah, that was the thing that really got me. You get to call yourself a woman, and you get society to demand you as a woman. But I understand the nuances behind not doing that with race, even though I am part black. That was the tipper for me, that I felt like I was entitled to speak on that. So I felt like I wasn't entitled to speak about gender. I wasn't entitled to speak about trans stuff because I'm not trans, but I am mixed. So I felt like I needed something to be able to say, this is my place to speak about. That's what I felt like. It wasn't my place to speak about trans issues. So I found somewhere that felt like my place and then talked about it. But I've learned over the last year and a half, that's the tactic, is to make people feel like, oh, I don't know enough about it to be able to, but we're all human. Like, we all know something about the human experience. So we're not that far removed from each other, I don't think. So yeah, I think a lot of women have been put in a position where they feel like it's not their place, and therefore they should listen, be educated,
right,
ignore their own instincts, ignore their own sort of, hang on, is this right? But yeah.
Yeah, because we've been told, like, if you're not trans, you can't talk about this. So, and it's a similar thing with the racial identity, where you can't talk about certain things if you're not, like, I've hesitated to use that argument in the past, the argument of, like, if transracial is offensive on all these levels, then why is transgender okay? Because, you know, I've hesitated to use that because I'm white.
You're placed almost, like, and I really did, like, even when I still sent that tweet, I was so nervous. Like, I think it was like 27 tweets long. And I was in a place then where I was still being very careful with wording. And,
Right.
you know, I was saying at that point, I would be happy to call anyone a woman if that's what they see fit. But when it comes to provisions, and, you know, I was still of a kind of opinion that be kind, which is obviously my nature is kind. So it was difficult to actually to take that first step and be unkind for your own reasons, or for, you know.
Yeah. How was the reaction in general, like in your life? Did you end up losing any friends or getting any backlash?
At all. Like, so my mum is like turf. So she's an old school turf. You know what I mean? Like,
That's awesome. Yeah.
She's so kind. Like, right. So this is how for me and my mum have agreed on everything from, we just agree on things, and I learn from her and I respect everything she says. And when it comes to politics, I listen to her. And if I don't understand something, I go to my mum and I say, Mum, explain this. And she was saying to me, Nehanda, like, there are problems. Women's languages are being policed. And I'm like, Mum, I don't believe you. And she was talking to me about sports. And I'm like, look, you know, I'm a fast female. I just think it'd make me work harder, Mum. Like, I was like, come on now. We live in, you know, it's 2020. So my mum, and it got to a point, it had actually got to a point where we don't fall out. But it got to a point where I was calling my mum a bigot. And she was saying, so they're using this word TERF. And I'm like, right, tell me what TERF means. And she's like, trans, exclusionary, radical, feminist. And I'm like, okay, so are you trans exclusionary? And she's like, well, I don't think that men should be in. And I'm like, okay, so you're trans exclusionary. And I'm like, so you're a TERF? And she's like, it was hurting her. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I now know what I didn't know at the time, but I couldn't see it any other way. And I couldn't understand why my mum, who I knew as, she would take the clothing off her back, and I'm not making that up, like I'm goosebumping to it. She would stand naked in the rain to help someone that had just punched her in the face, and I'm not making that up. To see her being a bigot, and I was like, I don't understand. So we just stopped talking about it. Me and my mum, completely, I think it was her, for her sake, I can argue about anything. But I think she had started to, you know, she was getting it from other sides, and then her daughter, who's feminist and whatever else, and we'd agreed on everything, had suddenly hit this block. That no matter how she explained it, I couldn't understand it. So I was on Instagram one day, and it was something to do with the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard.
Yeah.
Completely unrelated, like so non-trans related, right? So everyone was attacking Amber Heard, blah, blah, she needs to be destroyed, blah, blah. And I came on, and all I said, I wasn't commenting on whether it happened, whether it didn't. All I said was, what I think we should look at is how easily we believed her narrative because of how familiar we are with male violence, right? So I was saying, whether he hit her or not, whether she hit him, the fact that we all just didn't even question it because it happens 10 times over is something we should look at, right? So, and then someone came on and said, you're the type of woman that makes me ashamed to be female. And I was like, I'm like, do you know what I mean? That makes sense to me. I said, I don't know why you'd be ashamed of being female or of using the word woman. I said, I said something about being a scientific term, and why I said, don't be afraid, be happy, or something like that, right? And then they came back, and they said, you're not a woman nor a female, right? And I now know I was talking to a TRA, right? I didn't know that.
Right.
So I said back to that, and I was on my period, and I'm comical. I said, can you tell that to my uterus? Because it's really grieving me right now. And remember, I'm a trans rights activist at this point. Me and my mum are falling out over trans stuff, whatever. So someone said, you're not a woman nor a female. I said, can you tell that to my uterus? It's really grieving me right about now. And that was it. So it was, do you realise what you've said is really hurtful to trans women? And I was trying to respond to this, and someone else has come back to me saying, oh, so you're a TERF. And I'm like, whoa, no, I was just saying my uterus. No, hang on.
Yeah.
I tried to I wasn't defending. I was being science. I was saying, like, I'm just stating facts. Like, my uterus means I'm female. Like, some women that were born with uteruses, that's what I said. Some women that were born with uteruses don't have periods anymore, but it doesn't make them any less female. Trans women don't have uterus. I'm not trying to be hurtful. It's just factual. But anyway, so I got turfed left, right, and centre. You were turfed. And it just took that. Honestly, it took that. I said uterus. 7 million people jumped onto it, and I sat and I heard my mum saying the police in language, and I looked back and I saw the language police and the little woo 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 lights hovering. I was like, okay, if she was right about that, let me see what else my mum maybe have been right about, maybe. And then it just all came tumbling in around me. And this was around the same time. My tweet was in February, and I think J.K. Rowling did her tweet around December.
Yeah, the Maya Forstater tweet.
Yeah, and
in December 2019.
I take you around my flat and show you 7,000 Harry Potter items all in row, right? So my mum and J.K. Rowling are suddenly both.
Yeah, these two important women.
Yeah,
are
and
saying
bit by bit, it just. I think I delved too much too soon, if you know what I mean.
It's a rabbit hole.
Yeah, but it seriously, it is an absolute rabbit hole where you learn how. Yeah, I learned a lot about humanity delving into that rabbit hole and how far people will go to push their own selfish needs. I learned a lot in a year and a half. Nothing in me is as strong as my need to fight for women and girls. And it always has been, but I never really knew. I was a liberal feminist. I never knew, I had this rage within me, but didn't know where it wanted to go, or do you know what I mean? We get accused as liberal feminists. We get told to put on a bra and pants, you're being a feminist. But then that didn't make me feel like I was doing anything. And do you know what I mean?
Yeah, the liberal feminism, it doesn't really offer us anything of substance.
No, liberal feminism is a way of feeling like you're doing something while ignoring the absolute atrocities going on.
Yeah.
That's what I think radical feminism is head on facing things that will tear your heart apart, and sitting with that pain and thinking, what am I going to do to fix? Like, what can I, not even what am I going to do? We're all so different. What can I do? What skills do I have that I can put to this? So for me, it's my voice, my like music, and even that, it doesn't feel like anywhere near enough, but it's what I've got. Do you know what I mean? We all chip in where we can, but together, I think it's this movement that it's just so genuine. It's just so full of so many different people that, yeah.
Yeah. So tell us about your music journey. I mean, have you always been a musician?
No. So I worked in restaurants. I was a restaurant manager for years and years, like a good 8 years. I used to work 90-hour weeks, and it was difficult. And I always enjoyed singing, but I've always had a bit of a failure complex. Like, I went into restaurants because if you're a bad waitress, you just move on and do something else. But I happened to be a good waitress, and then I was an okay supervisor, and then I was an okay manager, and I stuck with things that were comfortable. But I ended up in a relationship that was just the first year. For me, like, I watched my dad sort of beat my stepmom. I watched him hit my mom, and I thought I knew, I'm switched on to abusive relationships. I will never end up in that situation, which, having lived life now, and now it's strange with life. Every time you live, you hit a new level and you go, oh, I thought I understood things. And so I ended up in this relationship, which for the first year was wonderful and all the rest of it. And then he started bit by bit becoming more and more controlling. And I used to travel around the country training staff. And then it was, oh, I'm scared you're going to meet somebody that, and so I stopped doing that. And then bit by bit, like, he wasn't comfortable with me wearing makeup and this little things. And I always stood my ground, like I did. But then the arguments got more and more. One day, he'd found a picture that I used to do modelling, and he'd found this canvas that I had printed, and it was me. It was a really beautiful picture with an X, but it wasn't sexual, but it was very arty, and it was black and white, and it was this lovely picture that he had told me to throw away, which I just hid it, right? But then he found it, and it kicked off, and this whole situation happened. He locked me in my flat. He'd parked outside my house for 6 hours. The police couldn't move him because he was legally parked where he was, so they were just letting him sit outside my house, watching in my window and stuff. And he was a rapper. It's just so strange how the music happened. So he was a rapper, and I thought the only way, I blocked him on all social medias, and I thought the only way I'm going to communicate with him is I'm going to make a rap song. And it was a half joke. It was a joke. It was what I'd written was real. But I didn't think people were going to take me seriously as a rapper. I thought I was just going to get laughed out of the ballpark. And I thought, I don't care. As long as he sees it, as long as he sees his angry girlfriend rapping and about what the situation. So I wrote 33 Ways to Assassinate Your Character, it was called.
Okay.
And I just all I was doing was proving to him that what he does, I could do just as well. But yeah, people took it really, really, like, it just went down a storm, like, and I thought, hang on a minute here, like, women were getting in touch saying, this has made me feel so empowered, like, and it was just me swearing, and, like, I purposely wore a push-up bra, like, I haven't got any boobs, but I had the most clean, because he was so controlling, so I'd, like, clean, like,
you were breaking free, yeah.
In this first video I was doing. So I just started rapping to piss my ex off and prove that I could do it as well as he could, and went from there, and I actually did so well that he stopped doing music because
you ran him right out of the game.
So within a couple of months, like I'd done Radio 1 Extra. I was on a track which is the Female All Stars, which that was 13 women all on one track, all spitting, but and that, like, just to be involved in something that should be so masculine and whatever else, like, that was. Like, the word empowering, I think, just gets chucked around a lot, but rapping for me was the most empowering thing I'd ever stumbled across. Like, I could walk into a room of 20 men with a beat playing, they're all like on the mic, all spitting about making money and blah, 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 and I would touch the microphone and some men wouldn't even come back to the microphone. Do you know what I mean? And I'd only been doing it a couple of months, and that felt like. So then I started doing it in the street. So I bought a speaker and I took my microphone and I rap in the streets, I sing in the streets, all sorts. And people love it. Like, I watch crowds of girls collect when I'm rapping, and like Muslim girls, white girls, black girls, young girls, old women, like purple rinsed old ladies come and give me money when I'm spitting like hard. Like, they see a woman doing it and they think, yes, I'll go and give her my pennies for that. She deserves that. So yeah, that's where music kind of for me was born from. It was a really dreadful place. Like, it was the relationship has been, and I'd like to say that I got out of it there and then, and I definitely didn't get out of it there and then. Situations got worse and worse, and I guess at some point it was mostly ammo. So a lot of my lyrics will have come from a place of like rebirth kind of thing. I kind of had to find the angry woman I was again after him. Yeah, and that's what for me music is. It's the most cathartic thing, and people say that, oh, it's a healer, and it truly is, because I've written some things that I wouldn't think anyone would relate to, and the way people relate to the things that have just come out of my own little head, this is just my little head, and people relate to it, and it's really amazing. Like,
and then you sing about being a woman as well. You have that great song. What is it? I Am Woman?
I Am Woman.
It is I Am Woman, yeah. I love that song. And it like plays in my head sometimes when I'm reading turf stuff.
Oh my God, I'm goosebumping at the thought of that. You know what, I saw somebody's tweet, and it was something along the lines of, we keep tweeting and words are all we have, but is it enough? And that's where that lyric, I feel like words aren't enough, but it's the other people's silence that's the problem. So do you know what I mean? Even if words are all we've got, it's the people's silence that will stand out more to me. And even if somebody's behind an anonymous picture or putting their words out there, it's important. And that's where that song came from. And I kind of wrote it inspired by J.K. Rowling, but Maya was at the forefront of my mind with the tell me my words are wrong, but I still speak them. You can tell me later. And that's what's important. Like, no matter who, what, when, why tells me that I'm saying the wrong thing, we all know, and that we won't move from our position, because we all know that our heart, it's coming from a place of wanting to protect, and not just ourselves. And I think a lot of people, the fire to protect comes from wanting to protect other women and other girls. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's because I think women have this thing of, we're taught to be selfless. So the idea of fighting for yourself seems a bit like, but I think it's completely different in America. So you were asking me if it's affected me, like, personally. I think especially, this is something I've noticed as well in England, working class women. So, and I'm not even trying to do it in a class way, but women that haven't got time to be faffing and all of this with the gender stuff won't have it. And there are a lot of working class women in the UK. So there's a lot of, like, so my circle, everyone in my circle, like some of them didn't really understand at first, but they're literally like, it's nonsense. They 100% will stand behind me when there's marches. So I am lucky that I've not faced any personal repercussions from it, and I don't work in a normal sense. You can't cancel that.
Right. Yeah, it does seem somewhat class based, because it's like if you're in the whole professional world with like journalism and those fields where you have to use Twitter for your job, then you're really in it, or like academia or something like that. It seems there everyone believes it.
On one hand, that just the people with more of a platform, more of a voice, and more of a influence are the ones speaking about it. Whereas if you were to, I really want to do just a YouTube video where I go into Birmingham City Centre and just grab the random public and ask them their opinions. Firstly,
that would be so cool.
Rowling is transphobic. Do you know J.K. Rowling? Do you think she's transphobic? Just a general, and I think we'd be surprised how very little people buy into the ideology. Like people might nod along politely, but if you ask them, like even my friend's a little bit younger than me, and she's got a friend on Instagram who put up this story, and it was can I just ask a question? And it's just about pregnant people, because I thought that we were using this term to describe non-binary, but is it all people, all women that are pregnant people? I'm not trying to offend it. She's about to peak. Like I can literally, and she's young.
Right.
So she's like, I'm not trying to offend. I just, I've had a baby, and I'm just wondering, do I have to refer to myself as a pregnant person? Because she's like, I quite like it. And she wasn't trying to be, how some of us can be a bit sort of clever with how we're asking things as to, but she wasn't. She was just asking kind of thing. So I think when it starts to really hit the people, they're not going to, in the UK anyway, women don't just seem to not be having it. So
yeah, you guys are like the forerunners of this. So the biggest TERF community, it seems. And I say that in the best way. I feel a little ambivalent about saying TERF about ourselves, because it is a derogatory word.
I think we own, like, are we trans exclusionary? Absolutely not, because any trans man any trans man that wants to be involved in, or detrans, any kind of, or even like, none of it, like, for me, this is such a fine line, and I don't like to have to do the black and white thing. Like for me, no man can ever become a woman.
Right.
But I'm not offended by somebody looking like a woman.
Yeah.
Me personally, but other people will find that sort of appropriating, as opposed to like, whereas if you know what you are and what I am, and I can speak freely in front of you, even if someone wanted to identify as a woman but had no problem with me identifying them as a man, if and when needs be, then you crack on with your time, I'll crack on with my time. Like, so I'm not trans exclusionary, but I mean, I Am Woman is a TERF song, so
yeah,
I mean, like, it says, I am woman, take me as I am, I'll never be a man. That's the lyric. So it's factual, but it's a TERF song. So it's one of them. Other people can identify me as what they want. That's what I've learned about identity. It's all of it is nonsense. I am what I am, and other people can. So if other people wanted to identify me as a TERF, and I'm fitting the categories for them, then
yeah, I feel the same way. It's like I used to be like, when I first got canceled, I was really trying to tell everyone, hey, I'm progressive, I'm on the left, I'm pro LGBT, don't think that I'm coming at this from a bigoted point of view. And then I learned, like, it really doesn't matter how I label myself, because they're going to always try to put me in whatever camp they want to put me in.
And even you can see with people like Jamila Jamil, who are trying their most best to be on best behavior at all times, they will still say something and get jumped on by it. So I think that's the sad part of what's happening, is it is affecting some trans people badly, but people can't open their mouths without it being transphobic. And that is actually turning people against, I would say, making things more difficult for trans people in general, because if you're scared to speak about something, even yourself and your own identity, then you're going to start looking at the people that are stopping you from speaking and going, well, you're the problem then.
Right, exactly. Because I've always been the same in terms of what you just said about you really don't mind if a man wants to appear as a woman. And I've always understood, like, that I learned when I was pretty young about what transgender is. Like, I remember in high school, they showed us some documentary about it. I was like, okay, that's totally fine. I get that. Because like you said, I know what you are and I know what you are appearing to be is different. So what's the problem? It's when they're really trying to tell us that they are women. And then I remember later in college, I was looking at some of these trans activists and I was like trying to make myself see them as women. I was trying to like flip that switch and I just couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I kind of became gender critical because it was too obvious that they were men with this collection of like stereotypes of what they think femininity is.
Wait, for me, it's when it became offensive. Do you know, like when
Yeah.
reading that it's a costume, and if I put fake tan on and like had my hair permed, and it would be wrong, and I understand why it's wrong without being told why it's wrong.
Right.
Because I get to identify into the good sides of being black, but when it suits, you know, if I don't want to be black, I can identify out of that. Yeah. I know what's wrong, like, and I'm part black, and I just can't get over that. How detached you must be from other people to put your own needs to be a woman in front of what women actually go through and what it means to be a woman, and what I didn't know it meant to be a woman, even though I did, but I was ignoring it and denying it. And I guess for me, you know how you were saying they showed you a documentary in school. If I'd have been shown a documentary in school, I think I would probably have started on a path that I wouldn't have come back or would be stuck on a path now with double mastectomy and other things, like, because I was raised just me, my sister and my dad. I was not interested in sex. I was not the idea, like, I was tall, so when I was about 10, 11, I started having men hit on me and I was like, whoa. So I was visually a woman, or society started treating me like a woman before. My dad hadn't taught me how to be a woman. He didn't know what it was. He raised us as little boys, so I thought it was a little boy. You know, and I knew I was a girl, but I didn't know the role.
I know what you mean. You don't feel sexed or you don't feel gendered.
At all. And I wasn't around a mum that was, oh, my bum looks big in this, or that wore makeup, so I never had body issues. I never, like, I was just a little boy, like, ish. And then I hit puberty, and then men and the world treated me like a sexual object before I even was close to being sexually interested. And if I could have opted out, and I know, like, a few people have said this, but if, like, do you know how many times I've said, I think I'm a man in a woman's body? And that's partly why I jumped into the trans thing so much, because I believed in male brains and female brains, because I thought I had a man's brain. And then I now realise that's being a woman. That experience of realising, hang on, they want to have me, and I didn't know I was a thing to be had. I thought I was a people. Like, do you know what I mean? That realisation that you're vulnerable. Why would you not opt out of that? Like,
right. That's exactly what we keep seeing over and over again with these girls who identify out of being female. It's really similar. They just don't identify with that objectification and what our culture views a woman as.
I even found, like, the idea of penetrative sex for me, and I don't think I'm a lesbian. I'm attracted to men, but the idea of penetrative sex for me was like, oh, because I don't know. I think I just a lot of younger people are kind of more interested in that thing quite young, and I just wasn't. So if you'd have come to me and said, in actual fact, you can be the controller or the penetrator, or do you know what I mean? Like, it was, I would have jumped at that, and I would have really ended up down. I've always been quite hairy, and do you know what I mean? Like, the world tells me that's not okay, and I would have. Still to this, part of me thinks it's something inviting. I've seen women talking about testosterone, and it sounds a little bit inviting. Like, some of the side effects to testosterone sound like your confidence goes up, your sort of They, your emotions get dumbed down a little bit, dulled down. Like
that's what they say.
Sounds a little bit inviting, and I know how bad a path that would be to end up down, and my brain still somewhere goes, oh. So imagine being a teenager. So it's not for me. It started off as I'm a little bit offended that men can identify as women and I can't identify as black, but you can identify as a woman. And then it became into when I started looking at the ideology and how it's affecting children. And I've just 16-year-old me, 15-year-old me, I just keep going back through my timeline and thinking how it would have blown my relationship with my mum apart. She would never have let my mum, like I say, she has a heart of gold, and she would have been one of those parents that was abusing her children by not letting me turn into this.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Like this woman that stands on the streets and do you know what I mean? Like it would break my heart, and think how many women out there have been stopped from becoming what it was or is they should be becoming, because it's scary to become a woman, and it is terrifying. It's terrifying, and it only gets scarier. Like it gets scarier, but the power that is in that, I think if we can find a way to teach young girls that the strength that you have in that female body of yours, you appreciate that. Like if we could teach girls that, I think
that's what we need, because it's like, I mean, I don't know if you saw this clip that was going around the other day on Twitter. It was somewhere in the US, and it was this young woman, like, and a bunch of college kids standing around, and this young woman was on a mic. I guess they were having like a rally of some kind, and she was saying, I just realized I'm a guy, you know, this is me now. And they're all cheering for her. They're like cheering her on, love bombing her, giving her so much applause. And you see how she glows when they applaud her. And it's so sad. And she's saying, I have to go home every day to a family that misgenders me. And it's just like, Jesus Christ. I mean, it's sad. At the same time, I think I don't know. I don't want to judge her. But at the same time, I think there's a real lack of critical thinking there, and a real going along with the crowd. But that's what happens. That's how most people are.
Honestly,
so how do we
self-harming?
I
was already, like, me and my mum were a little bit at odds as a teenager, because I didn't know her growing up, and it was a bit, we had issues between us. Not like I knew she loved me, and it would have been a perfect storm, like that. And having somewhere to run to, like I didn't really have anywhere to run to with my mum, because it wasn't, do you know what I mean? It was normal teen stuff. But when it's not normal teen stuff and it's deep rooted gender stuff, and then you have this family to run to who haven't known you from this age, and have they got your best interest at heart? It's like, and you see it happen. Like somebody comes out and they've suddenly got this whole community that they can identify into. And it seems like the people, like the lesbians and gays, like one of my best friends is gay, and he doesn't want anything to do. He's like, get that flag away from me. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I'm not even talking about the trans stuff, just that community that everyone's trying to identify into. He's like, I don't get to identify into it, but can identify? Like, can I still be gay? But just away, like, don't include me with that. The whole glitter mess that's going on out there. So it seems like people are trying to identify into something that can't be identified into, and the people that belong there, as we all know, have been completely pushed out, and what's left is a group of people that are identifying as something that they're not.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's just become a bunch of straight people calling themselves queer and dyeing their hair.
At one point, I honestly thought that a trans woman in a relationship with a woman was a lesbian. Really, like, once you accept certain things, once you accept the phrase trans women are women, even though you know
everything follows.
Everything just follows. Trans women belong in sports. It will make women work harder. And then, honestly, that was me. I was saying to my mom, if I was in sports, I'd be taking on a man. And then I looked into it was the Fallon Fox and Tamika Brent. And it's the words that Tamika Brent says. She says, I've fought however many women, never ever felt strength like that from a woman. She was basically saying, I took on the challenge because I thought I was a big bad, I thought I was the big bad fighter, and she is the big bad fighter. You are, I'm sure you are, Tamika Brent, but you fought a man.
Yeah, and he broke her skull.
You know, like there was no coming back from that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and I would have been that woman that looked at Fallon Fox and thought, yeah, I'll fight her. I'll fight him. I'll take him on, and I would have ended up with a cracked skull.
Yeah.
It's not. No one should allow that. It's not in anyone's. Whether it's like a tiny little man in a boxing ring going to fight a heavyweight. No one would allow that. We wouldn't allow it. Whether the tiny little man's going, yeah, I'll fight him. We
Yeah.
wouldn't allow it because he would get his skull cracked. But we allowed it, and she got her skull cracked. Like,
and then Fallon Fox went to brag about it online. Like he tweeted under J.K. Rowling's tweet. He said, "Yeah, I knocked out a woman. I would do it again."
and see, even hearing that makes me want to go and fight him. And I'm like, Nehanda, you're still a woman. You are still just a woman.
We'd have to all take him on, like, as a group. Now they're going to accuse me of inciting violence, so I better watch out. But yeah, no, it's insane. And it is like the thing where if you accept that trans women are women, you can't make any of the arguments that we make. And that's why they push that so hard, like that catechism.
No one believes it. Even if there's people sitting here watching it that say, I believe trans women are women. You don't. You don't.
Yeah.
No one believes it, right? But for me, I think it's actually the act of defeat. So at the point that you repeat something that you know not to be true, you are then susceptible to just keep repeating things that follow on from the other thing that are not true, that follow on from the other thing. And where does that actually lead? And like, sometimes I don't know where the most important part to be looking is. Like, do we need to be focusing on girls' school changing rooms? Do we need to be focusing on women's sports? Do we need to be focusing on prisons? Do we need do we need to be focusing on the ideology filtering down to girls and stopping it actually hitting?
There's so many areas of this. Yeah, it's insane.
It's scary.
But the thing about the deception, that's so interesting because it's like, it's almost like when the emperor's new clothes, and then the second you say like, yeah, I like them, you're screwed. Like, you're in it now. You have to keep praising them, essentially.
And you will run yourself in circles. Like, you'll get to a point like I did with my mom, and I can't. Even that didn't make me think. Like, I will argue and I don't mean like argumentative. I will discuss until the cows come home, until they've gone back out again, until they've come back home 3 times. I will keep discussing the same topic. But it got to a point with my mum where I said, let's not talk about this anymore. Never have I done that. So why wasn't something in my brain going, Nehanda? And this is between closed doors. Like, it's between just me and my mum, and I still got to a no debate.
Right.
Let's not talk about that. And that's because I couldn't refute. There were certain points, and I just couldn't tie in my mum being a bigot. So every time my brain tried to go, well, maybe she's not a bigot, I'd shut. Do you know what I mean? I had to shut it down, kind of thing,
because that would be too confusing. It's too much cognitive dissonance.
That's exactly what it is. Cognitive dissonance is exactly what it is.
Yeah, it's crazy. By the way, has J.K. Rowling ever liked any of your tweets or interacted with you at all?
She has, and can I just show you this? Right, she has, and my best friend knew how much it meant to me.
Oh my gosh!
I don't know if you can see.
Yeah,
it's got the date on it and everything. So
liked your tweet. Oh,
on the 2nd of July last year. Funny you should ask. Yeah, J.K. Rowling.
Because I thought maybe I had remembered something about that. I was like, that would be really cool. And so, which tweet did she like?
It was just in response to me just sending somebody kind wishes. I think it was just thanking somebody for sharing their story and sending all my wishes or whatever. And it like if I keep saying when I meet J.K. Rowling, that's my whole bucket list. It just says meet J.K. Rowling 50,000 times.
That's amazing.
Already my hero. I had a really, really difficult childhood, difficult teen years. And I wasn't like out and proud a Harry Potter fan because I was cool, I smoked, I was one of the cool kids at school. My life behind closed, she kept me alive. Like, honestly, to have the book open, I can't explain what it meant to me. And then this way she has put herself out there. I've written a few songs. I've got another song called Burn, and the lyrics to that are, like a phoenix, I will rise from the ashes. You can feel it while I rise. Feel my passion hit the ceiling, and that's just this. She's just so inspirational. Like,
Yeah. Oh, I hope you do meet her soon, someday soon.
100. I'm talking it into existence. I am going to meet J.K. I'll be speechless. I will embarrass myself. I don't know what it is I'll say, but just I'm not even a celebrity person, but I want even to breathe the same air as her would be like.
Yeah, I mean, God, do you remember the day that she released that essay? Because that was so exciting. It was like, whoa, she's really throwing it all into the ring.
So you know, like I was reading an article about you getting fired, and it was in the Daily Mail, and it's still they're kind of on your side, but they still state about comments J.K. Rowling made about trans women.
Yeah. Yeah.
Made comments about trans women. The closest thing she made to a controversial statement was when she was saying wimp and wump. I'm sure they used to use that. So she challenged gender neutral language, but she's never. She said, "Wear what you please, dress how you please." That's not talking about trans women. That's talking about human beings across the board. And throughout the entire essay, she talks about gender ideology, and she talks about her reasonings for why being a woman and keeping female space is important. She talks a lot about being a woman, and not a lot about any trans issues other than supportive, loving comments. But still, and that was just perfect proof that you can spell it out and be as supportive as possible.
Right.
Yet nothing is enough. No, unless you're trans or non-binary, nothing is enough. You're probably transphobic. You're either trans or transphobic. I think that's.
But the crazy thing is, there are some gender critical trans people, and they get shit from the trans community.
Yeah, no.
I've noticed that as well. It's like if you don't adhere to their ideology, it doesn't even matter if you are trans.
But then they would just discount them and say you're not trans, that you're not really trans.
Yeah, they will. And they say that to the D-trans too. What was that?
If you can de-identify, if you can tell someone else they're not trans.
Right. Yeah, I know.
It really looks like the opposite sex that they were born. If you can tell them they're not trans, what is trans? What?
And also, like, how can you tell me that I'm cisgender when you get to define your own gender? I don't want to be cisgender. I don't identify as cisgender. But no, that's hate, and everyone gets to say that we are cisgender.
So if you get asked what gender you are, can you answer that question can you just answer without saying anything other than?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, what gender, like, what do they mean by gender, first of all? Do they mean gender identity?
And sorry, what gender? And I say, do you mean sex? I can't have it. And I sound so argumentative, and I can hear the argumentativeness in my voice, and I'm only on the phone to pick up a prescription or something.
They've pushed us to this. It's insane. And then you get forms. Like, I was applying for something, and there were these forms. It's like, what is your gender? There's like a gazillion in the list, but not one that says woman. There's cisgender woman. So I just had to say, like, decline to answer, because I'm not going to say I'm cisgender.
So on the police website, I had to fill in a thing on the police website recently, right? And the options are woman, man, intersex, prefer not to say. So you can identify on the police website. This is official. You can identify as intersex.
Yeah, and I mean, I used to think intersex was that you're in between the sexes, or that you're both sexes. And then since I've gotten into all of this, I've learned that it's not that. It's just someone with a disorder of sexual development. And you're basically either one or the other. The vast majority of intersex people are one or the other. So yeah, it's not really an identity. I mean, maybe they feel in a certain way, but
say that you can identify into that. That's
right.
Born with a condition that's affected their life, probably in a probably a negative way, possibly a positive way, but it's affected their life.
Yeah.
And to identify into that I think that's another thing. So I did a lot of research on intersex. To even have an argument on a gender critical side, you have to be an expert on politics, an expert on biology, an expert on history, an expert on LGB history, an expert on medical. They'll come at so many different angles that And I'm actually quite pleased about the research that I've done. Like I've learned, and just following, you can go and you can follow so interesting voices on Twitter. And that for me, you'll learn more through following a person that's happy to tell their side of the story and as genuinely as possible. And so I just went and followed a load of trans people, women, men, detrans people, people that were happy to talk about being intersex. And I mean, actually, not people that are identifying, people that are genuinely happy to talk about their sexual development disorder. Do you know what I mean? Like it's not a identity; it's a medical thing. And yeah, and I've learned so much through that it's widened my whole worldview, definitely. But at the same time, like I know we're doing really well in the UK. But at the same time, like it has widened my worldview, and I want to do so much, but I feel like I can't move on too far with anything until we're safe, until women are safe, until girls are not getting the healthy body parts taken off and then regretting it.
Yeah.
And I think one of the most moving things I saw, and I've seen some really difficult to look at things, but it was a detransitioned woman, and she'd had a baby, and it was a picture of her with no breast, holding her baby in the formula milk, and the caption was something along the line, I don't have it, like this is I don't have a choice, I can no longer feed. And it moved, just the thought of regretting that, and then having this little thing that you're supposed to, you know, your body was built to feed it, and how angry you would be at yourself. I just felt so much sympathy for this woman, like just how angry she must have been at herself for doing what she did, and how much it was probably not her fault in the first place. Like
that's why I just think these surgeons and these psychiatrists are evil. I mean, there was this one who was caught on camera because someone in the room, she was giving a presentation. I think she is a surgeon. She's a gender doctor, Dr. Johanna Olsen. And someone filmed her from their purse, like they were sitting in her lecture, and they took a video, and she's going, yeah, so a lot of these trans boys choose to get, the top surgery, the double mastectomy. And do they have regrets? Well, if they regret it, they can just get boobs later. It's so abhorrent. It's so sickening. And it is evil, I think. And she's saying this like
that is not a functioning.
Exactly. Yeah, it's going to be silicone implants, which are dangerous and unhealthy, and they can like contribute to cancer risk. And you can't breastfeed, obviously, with them. It's terrible.
That's heartbreaking. That's absolutely.
Yeah.
The stuff that they show on that Jazz Jenner show, the stuff that they show on that is like I saw a conversation with him. I don't watch it, but I did. Like when I first found out about Jazz, I was on YouTube and I was watching, and there's one where he goes back. It's just
it's so difficult. I usually say just what rolls off the tongue.
And you know what? I'm going to go with she, because she doesn't know any better. She has been dragged into this from a young age. She goes to the doctor, the surgeon that has done her penile inversion.
Yeah.
And she's peeing off to the side, and she's in quite a lot of pain when she's peeing. And his reaction, he says, "Yeah, that's a very common thing with penile inversions." And she goes, "Oh, is it?" And he's like, "Yeah. That's on the TV. What do you mean? She's had the surgery already. Why are you telling her now when she's coming to you and her pee's going off to the side that is very common? Like, if it's very common, why is she going, is it, when you told her that? She should already know that."
Yeah.
And then they proceed to pull out, that was the last clip I watched of it. They pulled out stitches there and then, and the mom's like going, "Oh, sweetie, it's okay, I'm here, sweetie." I'm like, you put her through that. How could you watch it? Oh.
Yeah, I know. I saw one clip from that show where the mom is talking about Jazz having to dilate, and she's just going, if she lets that thing close up, I'm going to kill her. Like, which on one hand is the most sickening thing you could ever hear someone say about their child. But on the other hand, I understand.
She says, if she lets that thing close up, God help me, I will go and put it in myself.
I mean, in her mind, like in her twisted world, she's invested so much that she has to think that way, kind of. Like she's too far in, that would be devastating, because I guess she thinks they've created a vagina. I don't know if people really believe that you can do that. It's not. I'm glad you call it penile inversion, because that's exactly what it is. Yeah, it's not a neo vagina.
I'm just so inquisitive that I have to go and look. And like,
me too. I have the morbid curiosity. So
and that is it is not a vagina. It is not a vagina yeah. And I think if people were honest about what was happening, a lot less people would be. And I think that's probably why a lot of men aren't opting for.
Right. Is it like 80% of trans identified males don't do that?
Women seem to have to adjust their bodies to be trans, but men don't seem to have to adjust their bodies to be. So women have to cut off their breasts to be men, but men don't have to cut off the penis. You know, the penis that makes babies.
Because it's a girl dick.
Yeah, sure. Why are they not man boobs?
Yeah, because that's even a thing. That's even a real thing.
Why are they not man boobs?
Yeah. No, you're right.
Man boobs. Just accept them as man boobs.
No, that's so creepy. I mean, but I do think that the surgery for men will increase, because there's so much money to be made, and they'll get better at it. So that, because right now it's so risky, it's so, you know, I mean, they mess it up a lot of the time. But I was gonna say I spoke to Scott Nugent, who's a trans man. And Scott was telling me that before his surgery, they sent him the, risk factors, but like 3 days before the surgery, he was all ready to go. And this was for the bottom surgery for a female. So and then it ruined his life because it was botched. So they don't really do their due diligence in warning people.
Scott's done I think it was a really beautiful piece about motherhood, about what being a trans man means to him. Like that was one of the most moving things I've read. Like I was blown away by that. The amount of pain he went through to still be something that's not
exactly
in his mind to begin with. Like it's just for me, like I'm a fully grown adult, right? I started having laser surgery, like the hair removal, laser hair removal, about 2 years ago, right? So as an adult, I made the decision to permanently remove my body hair. Now, I've been a radical feminist, or looking into radical feminist stuff for a year and a bit. And now I'm in a position where I'm like, do I regret that? And that's just body hair. And I was a full-grown adult when I made that decision, and it is just body hair. It's just pubic hair and armpit hair. Like it's not going to affect my life. But already I'm thinking, do I forever want to not have any decision I've made? Now I can't undo it. Like I can't, and that's so
there's a real danger in these cosmetic procedures. It's so cavalier. It's just so normalized.
How casual cosmetic surgery in general is. As to
Yeah, it's scary. I mean, like, look at the Kardashians. They don't even look human anymore. And then that's become normalized.
I'm very flat-chested, so, that's me. That's no bra, right? So from a young age, I was like, boob job, I'm having a boob job, And then I thought, if you die in that surgery, how do you think your family are going to feel? And this is me at, 18, 19, and I really am quite flat-chested, so it's not like I'm, do you know what I mean? Like, just I want to be Kim Kardashian. I just wanted to be woman and booby. Do you know what I mean? And then as soon as I thought, if you die, imagine losing a daughter because she was vain. Like at the end of the day, that's what it is. And even though I have no boobs, so it would be, it's distressing. I could go pull some things and say it's my mental health and all the rest of it. But it would be vanity. So if I went and had that surgery and died under the knife. And that's when I started looking at cosmetic surgery and thinking, hang on, is this as normal as we're making out? And then here we are. It's not even we're putting things into ourselves. We are literally cutting off healthy. How long till it's arms and legs? Like, seriously, how long is it till someone says, this arm is a problem to me. It's upsetting me. Can you remove it?
Right. Have you read J.K. Rowling's new series, the Robert Galbraith books?
No, I
Because
haven't.
she has that in one of the books. There's this whole plot line about people who have that disorder where they want to remove a limb. And it's such a veiled metaphor for the whole transgender thing, especially because her main character is disabled. He's an amputee. He lost his leg in the war in Afghanistan, I think it was. So he is so deeply offended by these people who are like, I'm trans-abled or whatever it is. It was so good. Yeah.
That's like, so my mum was diagnosed with breast cancer and had to have one of her breasts removed, right? So at the point that these people were telling me I can't say uterus, I'm sitting there and I'm like, my mum hasn't banned me from talking about my right breast because she hasn't got one. All the women in our family are still allowed to have 2 breasts and talk about our breasts. She was born with 2 and she's lost one, but we're still, no one's being policed, but you're policing me because you were born without a uterus and a penis and you're angry at me because I've got one. It just didn't make sense to me. My mum was born with 2 breasts, now only has one, and is okay with people talking about their breasts. But I can't talk about my uterus to someone that never had one in the first place. I'm sure even women that had either had hysterectomies or were born without uteruses would be so comfortable to hear me talk about my uterus. It wouldn't bat an eyelid for me to talk about my uterus.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's like because they know that it, like you said, they don't believe really in the fantasy, so they have to force this because they can't be reminded. And I mean, I've read accounts from people who've done the surgery and they describe how, like, people have had regrets but not necessarily detransitioned, and they describe how just devastating it is to hear any kind of indication that you haven't achieved what you think you were going to become. And then that's why they go so apoplectic for misgendering.
But the thing is, I would liken that to when somebody says, oh, well, you're white, and you know, and my brain goes, I'm not white. I'm not white. I'm not going to behave like that because you have sinned what you have sinned. You've sinned somebody with this color skin, and I straighten my hair when my hair's straight. You wouldn't be, if you said I was white, you wouldn't be wrong because I look white. Do you know what I mean? But I understand that kind of, like, if I lived my life getting upset every time somebody called me white instead of just accepting they're saying it because that's what they're saying, do you know what I mean? Then I would still be like, it did. Race affected me really badly, especially because all my little brothers and sisters were darker than me, and my dad loved them more. He did, like, he loved do you know what I mean? And like, I was never black enough, and so that deeply hurt my feelings. Everyone in my family was black. Like, I was the only one that stood out. Do you know what I mean? Like, so it's deep within me that when someone either notices I'm black, the validation, or the opposite, the feeling of you've hurt my feelings. You don't know what I went through, and but you just, like, I have to deal with that. So deal. Like, you chose to go down that path. So deal with what's on the other side of it. And you're not a woman, therefore, psychologically, your life is just going to be difficult if you don't learn to deal with the fact that you're not a woman. If you keep living a lie, the lie's going to keep outing itself to you, and it's just going to be a constant misery. It's just,
yeah. That feels like a good place to end on because now I realize I've kept you for over an hour. So
I've had a wicked chat.
Awesome. Me too. I love talking to you.
Chat to you. Like, I'm really, really proud of what you do. Like, proud isn't the right word. Cause I'm like, I feel this thing for women that are doing things that I don't. Maybe it is pride, but like what you're doing and getting people on an interview and spreading messages, and I just think it's brilliant. I think everybody needs to look at their own skill set and say, even if you're a good calligrapher, you might not think that might, you've got beautiful handwriting. We can all somehow fit in, do something somewhere. And I think if everybody chips in, women are amazing. So we will cover everything. So thank you for doing what you're doing.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I completely agree. Like, we all have the different ways of doing it. And for some people, it might just be talking to someone in your life about it honestly, because that's what kind of breaks the spell, is just being honest. And no matter what reaction you get back, it always feels better, to be honest, always.
The suffragette colours.
Yeah.
That was I'm in the Haberdashery, which is like a cake shop, and it's just a little lady, and I was like, did you know? And so then we broached this conversation, and she was like, really? Like, I explained just a couple of bits, and she might have gone away with a little bit more information and maybe interest. I think that's important. Just talking to people, just doing anything we can, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So where can people find you and your music? Where should they go online to find you?
So I am on Spotify and stuff like that, but the most of my rantings and sort of things I've got to say are on Twitter, at Nehanda Music, and YouTube as well. So I've got a lot more control over my own YouTube, so you can put things on without really getting told too much. So YouTube, Nehanda Music, you can find all my stuff there as well.
Awesome. And I will link everything below so people can find you. Awesome. Thank you, Nehanda.
Yeah, and see you soon.